Okay, I think we're all set. So I'm going to get going here. Thanks everyone for joining today, either on Zoom or on Facebook Live, or if you're watching this later, and this will be available later to share both here in Oldham County as well as throughout the state, because we're focused on Watershed Watch in Kentucky, which is a statewide organization that supports volunteer stream sampling and monitoring of our waterways. And for those that don't know me, my name is Becca Truman. I work as the Watershed Coordinator for Oldham County Fiscal Court, and specifically working on trying to improve streams in the Curry's Fork watershed, which is in Oldham County. And in the past couple of years, I joined with Watershed Watch in Kentucky, and specifically with the Salt River Watershed Watch. And so we'll say this a couple of times because it does get a little confusing, but Watershed Watch in Kentucky is really the overarching statewide organization that supports the 7 watershed basins here in Kentucky, and Salt River is one of those 7 basins. So I'm part of that because I'm in the Salt River Watershed Watch. And I'm thrilled today to have Melissa McAllister here to help out with this session. In just a couple of years, short time with Watershed Watch, Melissa has been so integral to this program and the successes, and I'm sure anybody that knows her could speak better to that than I can, but really glad to have her helping with this session, and she'll be providing a lot of information as well. And then I know that there's other people here who are also probably have a lot more experience with Watershed Watch than I do, so at any time feel free to type things in the chat, and there'll be time for questions and conversation at the end. Just setting up some learning objectives to get a sense of what we're hoping that people who participate and watch this video will get out of the session. We would like people to learn about community-led stream monitoring and how to get involved. Understand the importance of volunteers in helping to increase awareness and involvement with protection of waterways. And then our third goal here is for people to gain examples of actions that anyone can take to help the environment. So we're all about both sampling streams and then looking at that data we collect to determine next steps and actions maybe based on that data, as well as just general good actions that we all can be aware of and know about to help nature. And a little overview here. So Melissa's going to kick us off, giving us a general overview of Watershed Watch in Kentucky. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of having volunteer samplers. I'll get into community outreach, so thinking about those actions that we can take beyond sampling the streams. Melissa's going to provide a couple of case studies, so specific examples to understand what type of actions we can take and have been taken here in Kentucky. And Melissa's going to talk about how to get more involved, and then we'll have some time for questions and discussion. So with that, thank you, Melissa. I will kick it off to you.
Thanks, Becca. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. I work through UK's Water Resources Research Institute, but I have been working as the Kentucky River Basin Coordinator and helping with the Kentucky River Watershed Watch group for 20 years. But then a couple years ago took over kind of chairing the umbrella organization for the whole state, Watershed Watch in Kentucky. And in putting this presentation together, I think about how joyful it has been interacting with people and getting to know people and their waters and helping them. And I really am looking forward to doing that in person this year, hopefully soon, because as you can see from these pictures, that's what it's all about for me, that and protecting the water, of course. So this is our mission statement. We support water quality monitoring that informs, connects, and empowers our volunteers and their communities for the improvement and protection of Kentucky's water resources. And the goal is to get people interacting with the water, learn about some of the indicators and how to measure them and what those measurements mean, and then pursuing those findings however they wish. We don't, force you to do anything with it. It's a volunteer organization. And just for some clarity, I know this is confusing to a lot of people, but this is from our database, and it shows the 7 major basins that we work with. Actually, the trade, water, and green are combined. So we have 7, and each of those groups has their own Watershed Watch group. So 4 Rivers Watershed Watch, or Salt River Watershed Watch. And the markers in bold colors are the ones that are active, so currently being sampled, and the faded out ones are ones that have historically been sampled but aren't now. And so you can see we've covered a lot of territory over the years. Watershed Watch has been around since the late 90s. And so a little bit of the makeup description of how we operate. You can see that we put the samplers at the top because you are, or if you do participate, the most important aspect of the organization. And then we have area coordinators that help within those basins with things like making sure you have your sampling supplies, making sure that your water samples make it to the right lab in time to be analyzed. And then we have a centralized sampling event coordinator who actually operates out of the Division of Water in Frankfurt. Her name is Joanne Palmer. She does a lot of kind of the mailings and finding out who is going to participate in the sampling event. And then each of the basins has their own steering committee that then reports to the statewide board through a representative, along with our 3 major partnering organizations, Kentucky Waterways Alliance, Division of Water, and then the Sierra Club also have representation on our statewide. And so the basics of what we do are we train and certify our volunteers to use the sampling equipment and know the sampling protocol for collecting water to take to the lab. And then going out and doing those field assessments of your chosen waterway and collecting the sample for the lab. And then we get the results and discuss those mainly at our annual conference, but really that can be at any time with your basin committee and your data manager. We can talk about that more later. So here's some pictures showing from left to right the classroom type training that we've done, and then the bottom left is a field training that we did by the creek. The middle pictures show the top, what your sampling equipment looks like that is loaned to you for as long as you want to participate. And then a picture of one of the sampling bottles collecting water. And then on the right, one of our lab analysts prepping samples. And then the bottom right is one of our annual conferences where all the volunteers from the basin get together, meet each other, talk about results, and probably hear from some like leaders in the field of water quality about different issues going on. So there are different types of training that we do. The introductory training, these are the kits you get to measure dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, and conductivity. And you can either do the introductory training online now or in person, and then go out to the field and finish up with an experienced sampler to make sure you're comfortable using the equipment. That goes the same with practicing with the sample bottles, and with the sample bottle that you'll get, there's that field form where you'll write down your sampling results and track your lab sample as it goes to the lab to be handed off there. We also have a phase 2 sampling that looks at what lives in the stream and how those serve as indicators of water quality. So some of these little creatures that you've probably never even noticed can tell us how good the water quality is, because some can only live in high quality water and others like worms and leeches can live in just about anything. So ideally you're going to find some things like these on the picture, stone flies, mayflies, dragonflies that show high quality water. So we can teach you about that. And then we also have a habitat assessment protocol that we've developed that shows if your stream ecology is favorable for supporting aquatic life. And we'll walk you through that. So that's another option. We do also have a lake monitoring program that I'm not going to go into a lot today, but it has been popular for people who recreate on our lakes or use them as drinking water sources. And it's during the May to October window. They go out every couple weeks and make some observations. And we actually have an app for that program, and they submit their observations through the app. And that is used also by the Division of Water to try to track things like harmful algal blooms that could be a threat for public health, and just to know kind of the general condition of the lake. Rhonda, do you want to ask a question right now? Or Rhonda Jewel?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, I can answer them at the end. But anyway, we do have some equipment for that. It's called a Secchi disc that we would issue. And if you're interested in that program, let us know. So this is the sampling equipment that you will be loaned once you've completed the training. And then, like I said, when you're finished, if you can return that, we kind of refurbish it and put it out there for another volunteer, because altogether it's like $150 to $200 in value. We try to recover that as much as we can. This is the website, the data portal that we use to post all the results from across the state, and that has different search functions. You'll be assigned a site number that you can search by, the name, your volunteer name, stream name, or you can search by the watershed area that you participate in, or by county. So it gives you lots of options to find your sampling results, and also some interpretive functions to help you understand what those results were. We also have our website where we try to post as much helpful information as possible. We also have contact info there. If something's missing, get in touch with us and we'll try to help you answer any questions that you can't find answers to on the website. So just a little bit of overview again, like a review. So Watershed Watch organization started in the late 90s originally to help the Division of Water with their watershed program, and to provide some like preliminary citizen data to help them get on track with their sampling program. And we sample 3 times a year. May, July, and September are our main events. But there's no reason why you can't go out there with your equipment and sample at other times. Those are just our main coordinated events. And we're looking at the field chemistry with those kits, and then also the lab samples. All the basins have analysis for E. coli, which is a bacterial indicator for either human waste contributions, or it could be livestock or wildlife. But there are water quality standards associated with that for recreational safety. So we do measure that. And then some of the basins look at other things like nutrients and metals. Nutrients can signify a problem that could prompt more algae and the decline of the waterway. So they're also very important. And then each of the basins creates their own data report at the end of the sampling season that they provide back to the samplers in addition to that online data portal, and then presents that information at the annual conferences. There are a few of those coming up that we'll mention at the end, and then our websites. I think that's back to you, Becca. Is she there?
Okay, well, great. Thanks,
Okay.
Melissa. And
You're welcome. Uh-oh. Becca, we can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's better. There you go. You're unfrozen. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. My internet's a little unstable, so just let me know if you're having issues. Okay, I'm hoping to convey to you all the importance of having volunteers be committed to helping sample our streams here in Kentucky. So Melissa mentioned a little bit about the Division of Water and their role and standards for our streams and waterways. So the Kentucky Division of Water, what they are our statewide agency that's tasked with the regulation of point source discharges. So an example of a point source discharge would be our sewer utilities that they end up piping water after they take in all the surrounding sewage for the area, they clean it. They usually end up having some type of lagoon or a basin where that water has time to settle. And then there's a pipe that usually goes straight from there to a stream. And there's regulations in place to make sure that water going from that lagoon to the stream is meeting standards. So there's regulations on that side of things. But what's not regulated is non-point sources. So examples would be oils, fertilizers, road salts, septic systems are considered a non-point source. So all of these contributions that maybe on like an individual property or a lawn might not be such a problem, but together, considering our watershed perspective of things together, when it rains and all those pollutants get combined together, end up in the same stream, that's where it becomes a problem. And so to help assess where issues are with our streams, to try to understand maybe those non-point sources and what's contributing, Division of Water rotates monitoring sites of our streams throughout the state. And they help to determine if our streams are meeting those water quality standards. So is it okay for people to go and swim in the streams? Can you fish in streams? And considerations for aquatic life too, which is measured based on dissolved oxygen, which is one of the parameters that we measure through our volunteer monitoring. And next slide, please. So this map here, this is from 2016. So as I mentioned, Division of Water, they have this rotating basis of going out and monitoring the streams. And this is the accumulation of that as of 2016. It takes them several years, as you can imagine, to get throughout the state. And this map here is showing primary contact recreation, which is that standard for swimmable. Is it considered a risk, or is it safe for people to go in that water and potentially submerge, potentially drink that water and get in it? What's the risk level there? And that's based on bacteria, again, as Melissa mentioned, how much bacteria is in that stream. Because if you have a lot of bacteria in the stream, the risk is going to be higher of people potentially getting sick. And you also might hear about, after a rainstorm, maybe don't let your dog drink in the local streams. That's all connected to this idea of this standard for primary contact recreation and high bacteria and risk to human health. So 2016 here, we can see that 79% of those streams that Division of Water has monitored are not meeting that standard, which is a pretty high amount. So if we can go to the next slide. So adding that on top of the concept that there's over 90,000 miles of streams in Kentucky, so more miles of navigable water than any other state than Alaska, which is a pretty neat fact to know. So the streams assessed by the Division of Water are only hitting about 15% of the streams, the total miles that we have in the state. So that's a big gap between the amount of streams we have and the knowledge that we have of which streams might be not meeting standards. And if we can go to the next slide here. So hopefully that puts into context how important it is to have volunteers go out and get eyes on the streams. When people are doing this volunteer monitoring, they're not getting out to their stream once every few years. Ideally, they're getting to their stream 3 times a year or maybe 4. And so if you're a volunteer sampler, you're going to have a lot more knowledge than anybody else because you're going out and monitoring you get eyes on the stream, and you help to develop this large database that now we can refer to help guide potential next steps and projects. So the monitoring that we're doing, it's not to the level, it's not necessarily to the level, the standards that Division of Water is, but it's considered more of like a scoping level to help us identify potential sites for Division of Water to look at more closely as well. And
I wanted to mention one other thing that I think is important is
sure.
When the Division of Water is looking at where to focus their efforts, like priority watersheds, they do look to see how much local engagement there is, and Watershed Watch samplers are one way they do that. So they're trying to decide between this stream and another stream. If they see, oh gosh, we have 5 samplers in this area and we have none in the other, they're more likely to put their effort and resources where there's going to be local support. So that's another thing that I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's a really great point too. Okay, so
sorry, that's a good transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So getting into community outreach and talking a little bit more about not just sampling, but next steps and things that we can do to support our streams. So we've kind of split this into two sections here. So the first is actions that anybody can take. So there's a lot of actions that you don't even need to know necessarily what, if you have problems in your local streams, that we just know are good things that anybody can engage with, and we can feel good about. And as Melissa said, the more community engagement we have in the area, the more likely there is to be that cumulative impact. So things like stream cleanups, streamside planting, so both with trees, I hear more and more different people who aren't necessarily tree people like me talking about trees. So that's super exciting, the benefits of trees. Pollinator meadows, sort of the same concept. We can't always plant a tree somewhere, but we can plant native plants a lot of places. So combining those two practices are great. Connecting with your elected officials is huge. Elected officials often don't hear from people. So that's a really great way to get your voice heard, especially they want to hear from people like in their districts, in their areas. So that's a great way to connect and have your voice be heard. Joining or starting local watershed groups. There are a few throughout the state. And last year we started the Curry's Fork Watershed Group, our Friends of Curry's Fork. So that's an effort here in Oldham County to try to get people more engaged with these actions. You can also learn about your drinking water source. So you might see a sign every once in a while when you're driving on the highway to say drinking water protection area. That means that there's some utility there that's pulling that water and bringing water in from that watershed, from the groundwater into drinking water. And so the better we can do to keep that clean to begin with, the healthier that water is coming out. You might have heard about PFAS and other contaminants, and that directly relates to our drinking water. So the more we can do to keep water clean, the better to begin with. And this next piece here, data-driven actions. So it's not necessarily to say that there's separate actions when we're thinking about data-driven actions, but data-driven actions would be more based on what we're finding in the stream compared to using what we find in the stream to guide our next steps. So when we go out and we monitor a few times a year, we have trends and we have things that might stick out. So maybe we're noticing that our dissolved oxygen is a little bit lower. I mentioned a little while back that oxygen levels are used to determine if our streams are meeting aquatic wildlife standards. So if fish need air to breathe too, right? And it's going to be in the water. And so that directly connects to temperature in our tree canopy, because if we don't have a tree canopy, then that water is going to not be as cool. You don't have trees to shade the stream, and then that's going to make it a little bit more challenging for dissolved oxygen to go up to those levels that we need to support fish. We're looking at pH. So we generally want pH to be between about 6 and 8. If it's too high or too low, that's a consideration. We've mentioned bacteria quite a bit, so if our levels are too high, that's a risk. So
Becca, we lost you. Oh, there you are. I wonder if you want to turn your video off. I hate that, but
here's with is the idea that if you see something, to point it out. And so there's resources here to be able to do that. And there's a number. So you might see one time when I was out, I saw some concrete, and concrete in the stream is not good. So I was able to report that here, and this goes directly to Division of Water, and they take actions pretty quickly when they get these concerns reported. So if you see something that just looks a little bit off, this is a great resource to know about. And then just some ideas. Oh, sorry, if you can go back a second. Just some quick ideas on, taking actions based on the results of the data that you've collected, connecting with your local basins. So again, those 7 basins, connecting with, so here in the Salt River, we would connect with both our Salt River Basin Coordinator, who's a representative from Division of Water that works throughout the whole Salt River, as well as with our steering committee groups for each basin. We also have the Watershed Watch Kentucky Science Advisory Committee. So that's a great group that's directly looking at the data and trying to support actions based on that. Again, forming a group or a team. Maybe there's other people along the stream that you found issues that you can connect.
Becca, we lost you, but I think she was going to
kind of diagnose where something might be.
Oh. And then I guess she's talking about the last number for connecting with your local agencies that can help you with specific issues, especially some of them like Conservation District and Extension Office that can help with agriculture related possibly sources, or the health department is really helpful in dealing with possible septic source. I'm just gonna keep going. Oh, there she is, Becca.
Okay.
Hey, I just finished that slide up for you.
Perfect. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So we're going to go into just a couple of case study examples of some kind of the progression of uses of Watershed Watch data and what they've led to. The first one is from Western Kentucky in Callaway County, the Damon Creek watershed. And they've been sampling for a long time. They started sampling there in 2001, sampling different locations throughout the watershed. And in 2002, some of their sampling detected really high bacteria counts, which they did report to Kentucky Division of Water. That's what that acronym stands for. And they sent people out to investigate it and realized that a cattle manure lagoon had been breached and was directly flowing into the stream, so causing those really high E. coli levels. And they were able to address that problem. So that was a good result out there. And then as the years went on, Damon Creek was part of a larger study of the Clarks River watershed, which includes the smaller sub-watershed of Damon Creek. And it was one of the areas highlighted as needing improvement. So following on that, a watershed and sewer association was formed that addressed some human wastewater issues and took some failing septic systems offline and dealt with a wastewater treatment lagoon and tried to clean things up that way. And then that subsequently led to even more focused sampling with the assistance of Watershed Watch samplers that have led to other management efforts in the area to continue to try to improve water quality, such as agricultural practices that reduce some of those runoff contributions that can contribute, like high sediment levels from erosion or manure runoff. And then also still dealing with septic system problems in the area. And actually, Rhonda Lamb is on the call right now, and she's been directly involved in this. I don't know if you want to add anything in particular, Rhonda, that I glossed over.
You did well.
Okay, thank you. I'm always a little nervous when I'm not directly involved, misspeaking. But I have been more directly involved with the other example I wanted to bring up. This group in Wolf Run is just stellar and has done so many great things over the years. It's located in Fayette County. Actually, I've been sampling since '97 and formed one of those local groups that Becca was talking about called Friends of Wolf Run. They have worked very closely with the city of Lexington on projects over the years and completed multiple watershed grant projects with funding from the River Authority, Kentucky River Authority, but also Division of Water. The city of Lexington have given them money. A lot of that has to do with dealing with some stormwater impacts, the way all the stormwater running off of all those paved areas in Lexington does quite a bit of damage to the stream. They've done a lot of stream plantings with homeowners in the area. They've received grants from the Division of Water to do higher level sampling than just Watershed Watch sampling with professional consultants. And those findings have enabled them to get more follow-up funding to do larger projects. And they're continuing to collaborate with the city on monitoring stormwater outfalls to make sure there aren't what they call illicit discharges. So like where people have, getting into the weeds now, but like where they're funneling like pollution, some type of pollution straight into the storm sewers and it's getting into the stream. So they've been impressive over the years, but it just started with a few little samplers out there doing their part. So I wanted to mention them as well. So Joanne Palmer is the volunteer coordinator that I mentioned at the Division of Water. And this is her phone number and email address. We also have a general interest form on our website that will get to either Joanne or me or someone that you can signify your interest there if you want to participate. Also, if you want to go ahead and get started, if you're really eager, we developed this introductory option online last year when we weren't able to do a lot of in-person training workshops. And on the sampling program tab, you can click where this, the bottom arrow is a video that is actually me with another person going out for like a typical stream sampling event. So you can see us in action. That was kind of fun to make last year. And then the top arrow, if you click on that introductory sampling or phase 1, will lead you to this video that actually starts the training process for you. And Joanne Palmer did that one. And at the end of that video, there's a little quiz that you'll complete, and that will email her that you've completed it. And then she'll reach out to you about continuing the training out in the field with one of our samplers who's been doing this for a little while, and they'll provide you with your sampling equipment and make sure you're comfortable using it. So that's kind of the hybrid process we've worked out now. We used to have like a 2.5 to 3 hour in-person training, but this kind of streamlines it a little bit. And then these are some upcoming events we have. The Big Sandy Watershed Watch group in Eastern Kentucky is having their conference next week. Unfortunately, it's virtual, which we're all getting tired of, but it does allow for more people to participate sometimes. And then they have training workshops scheduled for April 8th or 9th. I don't think that's been settled, which of those dates at Panther State Forest. It's actually, we're collaborating with West Virginia on this one since it forms the border of our states, and there's a lot of interest in improving tug fork there, so it's kind of exciting. But Panther State Forest looks beautiful. I definitely want to make it there soon. And then the Kentucky River Watershed Watch Group, that's who I work with. We're having our annual conference by Zoom on March 26th. And the Salt River one, I'll let Becca talk about that because that's her territory. Go ahead.
Sure. Basically what it says there. So our annual conference, it will be on Zoom, February 24th. It's actually going to be closer to 6 to 8, but we're going to allow for those that need to be recertified. If you decide to become a trainer, I know some people on here already have already been training for a long time, so are aware of the recertification, but we do a recertification option as well with our conference. But you can register at this link here, or feel free to reach out to me. And then we've got 3 trainings set for the afternoons of March 29th, April 3rd, and April 9th. And then I just put specifically here this event for our training at April 3rd in Oldham County, because one of the reasons we're doing this, which I don't think I mentioned, is because I do have some grant funding through my position with Oldham County to specifically get a few more samplers sampling inquiries fork. So we have funding for kids.
And then I think this is just a little plug that we are doing a Love Water fundraising campaign right now to help pay for our sampling kits and the laboratory analysis costs. And here's the link to the platform we're using for that. Is called Mighty Cause, but the link is also at the top of our webpage right now. So we're doing that through Earth Day. And so I guess I'll just open it up to any questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Melissa, I don't have a question, but I have training dates if anybody's from Four Rivers listening that wants to do training.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Thursday, May the 5th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Murray State University in the IT Center, room 234. We're going to do phase 1 training there. That's the field chemistry, go over that. Then that's following Saturday from 9 to 11. We'll be doing the habitat and bioassessment training at Bee Creek Soccer Complex there in Murray. And so if anybody's interested, they can email me and I can send them some more information, or they can go to our website at frww.org under events.
Thanks, Rhonda. And yeah, there's likely going to be a lot with the 7 basins. I'm sure there's more events and trainings going on that we didn't necessarily have on this.
Yeah.
So depending on where you are, reach out and we'll connect you.
Mm-hmm. We need to put those all on our main website soon. Just so also so you know a little bit more information, we have scheduled when those 3 main sampling events will take place this year. The first one is on May 13th or the 14th. So it's either a Friday or a Saturday. And then you have the option. And then the next are on July 8th and 9th. And then the fall event is September 9th or 10th. And we didn't talk about this, but it might be helpful to know that you can either tell us where you want to sample, like if you have an idea in mind, or if you just know you want to sample, you can ask for guidance on that, and we're happy to provide you with some suggestions of sampling locations.
Okay, well, seeing no questions, I don't want to hold
Wait,
anybody
Kelly
here.
has one. I think Kelly has one.
Yeah, you talked about getting more involved in the Watershed Watch. Did you mean anything besides serving, first as a sampler, or are there other ways that we can get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kelly. On our website, on Join Us, we have how to become a water sampler, but other ways to be involved. And we mentioned that there are area runners that help kind of meet up with samplers and make sure that, like, transport the samples to a labs, because sometimes, the lab's like 30 minutes away. Not everyone wants to drive that 30 minutes. So we have that way of helping. If you have any kind of, familiarity, everybody's going to have familiarity with their local area. You can offer insights as to, like, what might be causing, some of the results to happen, like looking at land uses. Like, you might just have no local knowledge and know that, oh, the sewage treatment plant's right upstream. Maybe that's a problem, or, there's a lot of development. Maybe that's why we're seeing all this dirt, like, sediment in the stream. We're always looking for ways to get the word out about Watershed Watch. So we are working on some tabling supplies to use at community events to explain what we do and try to attract new samplers and interest. So that's another way to get involved. If there's interest in one of those community projects, you can help coordinate that and work with partners, like for the stream cleanup or a tree planting event. Those are fun, kind of motivational activities to do. And then I don't know if you caught it at the beginning, but we were talking about a new program that we tried to kick off a couple years ago, and it's been kind of delayed because of COVID restrictions. But we have 4-H stream teams that we are trying to work with youth on a similar type of sampling project that culminates in a community project. And so you could help with that if your local 4-H program has interest in doing that. Yeah, those are some ways. I don't know if you, Becca or Rhonda, want to add anything.
If you're currently a volunteer and not serving on your steering committee, you can get involved with that. I know from my steering committee, we always need our volunteers to work with us on things we do. You can be involved in that. And then when you step up to that, then you also, there's a chance maybe to step up to the top umbrella of the Watershed Watch. You can climb that ladder.
I guess also maybe with helping with the annual conference, things like that. I'm sure the Basin Steering Committee will help find a way to engage you, something that works for you.
Okay.
Because we definitely do have people that have kind of backed off of sampling, but they still want to be involved.
I'm a current volunteer, a sampler, and I was wondering, the time changed for the annual conference, and I think there was time offered at the beginning before the conference to recertify people. Is that still going to be included in that, or is that going to be on another day?
Which basin are you in?
Salt River.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to have recertification prior to the conference.
Okay. So the email that I received, though, the recertification, the original one was 5:30, and then the conference begins at 6, I believe. And then there was an update that the conference is at 6:30. So does that mean recertification still at 5:30?
I'll resend out that email. We had our steering committee meeting yesterday and kind of reorganized the times, but I'll get that back out to you.
Thank you.
Any other?
I have a question. Is there any restrictions to be a sampler?
No, there's not. We've kind of stuck to having adults like 18 and up. The only real reason we had that was to make sure we didn't lose track. I think it was mainly to not lose track of the sampling equipment. But we do have younger participants that do that, like with their parents or guardians out there. But other than that, like, you don't need a lot of scientific background to be able to do it. We will walk you through using the equipment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, does. And just one more, is could be count as volunteer hours for high schoolers?
I would think so. Yeah. Yeah. If you need any documentation of that, we can provide that.
Okay, I think we'll wrap up here. Thank you all so much for your time. I'll follow up after this, everybody that registered, to get you the link to this video and contacts, and just reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you all. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.